Hello, everybody. Dr. Rick Wallace dropping in on you. I hope that everybody's up and off to a great start this morning. I've been up for a while, obviously, but I did want to take time to stop in and continue this series on money. This morning, it's Mindful Tuesday, so we are going to look at how we think about money and how that impacts the way we deal with, the way we handle, the way we maneuver within the economic system to have the things that we want and all of the other things, and why we may be hamstrung when it comes to uh, fulfilling some particular goal when it comes to finances. Everybody's life is different. Everybody's desires are different. Everybody has a different way of looking at things. And as you have heard me say numerous times, uh, the number of zeros in your bank account is not uh, a barometer of your success. It may be a mechanism or element that you acknowledge or that you are aware of or that may contribute, but success has to be defined deeper and more grounded than the zeros, because life happens to the best investor. Life happens to the hardest worker. Life happens. And what happens when those zeros diminish and things get tight? Are you still successful, or are you no longer successful? And there's a way that you can be consistently successful with no matter what's in your bank account, no matter how many likes you get on social media, no matter how many people pat you on the back and tell you you're awesome. All of these things that we tend to judge how well we're doing through external stimuli, external information, external feedback. We're always trying to judge based on the approval and approbation of others, how others see and view us. And we really tighten the noose around around our necks that literally chokes the life out of our ability and our purpose, our ability to fulfill our purpose. And so what we have to do is understand that when you really truly narrow this thing down, the best definition I've ever heard about what success is came from Earl Nightingale. And it's kind of funny to see things about Earl Nightingale now, because when I was a little kid, uh, old enough, it was the early 70s, 71, 72, about 5, 6 years old. My grandmother got these LPs of Earl Nightingale. And man, I would listen to him, and it was his voice. His voice was a lot like my grandfather. My grandfather had this real deep voice. And so I would sit there and I would listen to this guy. He would talk about a lot of stuff I have a clue, but I was getting seeds planted without knowing it. And it would change the way I thought about everything that I wanted to do in life and what I thought I could do. But when I go back and I look at a lot of notes and stuff I wrote down and scribbled all over the place, I've gotten a lot better at journaling now, but I guess I was journaling then and didn't know I was journaling, but I wrote a lot of stuff down, kept all that. One thing that you'll see if you walk into my office is just stacks and stacks of composition tablets. Before I got formal, nice, neat leather-bound journals, just a tablet, and just write everything that came into my mind, everything I heard someone else say that I thought would be something I would want to remember. I wrote it down, and I still do that every day, all day. Anyway, he said that success is the consistent progress you make as you move towards a worthy goal. It's not the goal. That's why so many people get frustrated, because you set the 90-day goal and you don't hit it. Did you make progress? Did you fail forward? That's the thing. Did you fail forward? Good morning, Kim. Did you fail forward? That's the question. And I remember my my mentor, the person who taught me about business and money. And one thing he told me, he said, you will always find yourself in a place where you are growing, experiencing success and moving forward. You're going to be successful no matter what. And he says, it's because you're willing to fail forward. And I'm like, okay, how does failing, uh, how can it be equated to success? How do those become in any way synonymous or intertwined or interconnected? Success and failure to me seems two different things. He says, no, you have to look at how you define it. When I say that you're going to fail forward, is that you set these unbelievably high goals, these goals that most people would say were unrealistic. And then you go after them with everything you have, and you rarely hit the goal on the date it is set. He says, but when you look up, you've traveled so far forward from where you started, you've gained ground. You didn't hit that mark, but you gained ground. It's all of the ground you gained on the way to the mark you didn't hit that makes you successful. Every day you're moving. You're never sitting still. You're hardly ever going back. And if you go back, you're up the next day working harder than you were before to get what you lost back. So you're constantly in a movement that is consistent with success. It's not about the benchmark. It's about the movement. And so I started to think about it like, yeah, I guess so. And so the thing I tell people is, yes, set your goals because your goals are what you're going to measure yourself by. But what you're really truly wanting to measure is the movement, not the benchmark. Am I moving toward the goal? Then you can measure the rate and at which you're moving towards the goal, the speed or velocity at which you're moving towards the goal. And you can look at what's creating and generating that momentum and make adjustments. It's what, it's what we do at the Visionetics Institute. It's simply saying, this is the direction you want to go in. First thing that I'm going to ask a client when they come to me is, what is it that you're expecting to get out of this encounter? What is it that you want? Do you want to, you want more clients? You want a better marriage? And how do you define that? Not just do I want a better marriage. How do you want to improve your marriage? What areas? Communication, time spent, affection, emotional stability, emotional support. What is it? What do you want to accomplish? Why is that important? Because you're putting the target on the wall. Because see, throwing a dart at a wall without knowing what the target is means you're hardly ever going to hit it, if at all. And that's what people are so frustrated. They know they want something, but they're so ambiguous with their desires and their aspirations and their goals that they never even come close to hitting it. Or even if they hit it, it's so ambiguous and the definition of what it is they want is so nebulous that they actually never even know that they're there. They bypass opportunity after opportunity because they don't recognize it. So we're going to define what it is, and then we're going to go after it. So it's extremely important to have a clear understanding. Then you want to clock the movement. Clock the movement. Understand what I'm doing. Am I moving towards it? I get to celebrate life every day. Why? Because every day I grow. There's a part of my day dedicated to learning. If I didn't get anything else done right that day, I'm going to learn. And I do it twice a day. Why? Because I want to start my day off on a high note. Why? Because the highest measurements on the Hertz scale as far as energy emission and energy generation comes from enlightenment. When you learn something new, it's 700 Hertz or higher. It's higher than love. It's higher than gratitude. It's when you learn something, the possibilities alone of what comes out of what you learn creates this unbelievable energy, because you can take what you learn and do so much with it. And and all of that positive energy generates 700 Hertz or higher. And so you are really and so if you haven't heard me say this before, you always want to kind of stay at love. Love is the lowest you want to be at. Love is 500 Hertz. And I'm not talking about lust. I'm talking about true, highly beneficial and giving and heartfelt commitments about love, loving your kids, loving yourself, loving your spouse, loving the work that you do. And if you want to love your job, love your job. But when I talk about work, I'm not talking about the job. I'm talking about the purpose and all of that. So it's extremely important to understand what that does. So in the morning time, I start out a session of learning. I've already did my session for the morning. So the whole learning thing is clicked on. And so now I'm operating at a certain level and I've got a certain expectation. It's allowed me to put a lot of the challenges that I know I've got waiting on me on hold until I set the mood for the day, the state for the day, and how I'm going to move forward. Then I do it at night, because now what that does at night, it says I could have had the worst day in the world, but I gained ground. I'm going to start right and I'm going to finish right because I control it. I control it. I don't care if it's reading 15 minutes. That's 15 minutes of feeding my mind something that it was not completely aware of. It may have been aware of it at a level, but I want to introduce a new level, a new ideas, new details. I want to gain ground. I want to become better. And so my focus is better. My focus is always becoming better and stronger to be more powerful and impactful. And so that's it. So let's talk. What are we going to talk about in money? I told you that this week up until Friday is going to be about money, different ways we view money, different ways we handle money, why we struggle with money, what the problems are, how we deal with it. And so today, since this would normally be Mindful Tuesday, we're going to deal with how we think about money. One of the first things that I want to point out, though, is that we have to take on the responsibility of learning about money, so that we can teach our children about money, because the academic system does not teach wealth building, how to manage money, how to build businesses. It teaches you how to be a follower. It teaches you how to standardize your operational functions within your mind to fit in and be like everybody else. So you lose your uniqueness in the shuffle, and your uniqueness is your greatest value, but you lose it, and you have no idea about creating. So, and you go out, and the mindset is, I win if I get a job with a Fortune 500 company, and I can work my way up through the ranks. You rarely see someone coming out and the idea is to build a Fortune 500 company. That's left up to the rich, not because they're rich, but because they know. See, knowledge is far more powerful than money if you put it to use. Now, it's potential, only potential, until you put it to use. But when you activate the knowledge and you put the knowledge to use, it becomes power. And so the thing is, you have to take on the responsibility of learning about money so that you can teach your kids. Because see, that's what the wealthy are doing. While we're telling our kids, shut up at the dinner table, stop talking at the dinner table, that's where the wealthy guy is teaching his son and his daughters about money, especially the son. He's sitting at the dinner table, asking questions, fielding questions and providing answers. And that's the conversation. It's a common occurrence in the homes and in the environments of wealthy people, is to talk money. Is to talk, how this whole money thing works. So then that's the first stage, is you've got to teach. And then you got to start understanding that money and finance is simply a game played by the rich and bankers. They're controlling the movement. They're controlling the flow. They're playing the game and holding the mechanisms through which assets are acquired. Another thing that we fail to understand is what is an asset and what is a liability. And because we don't understand that, we tend to spend our money in ways that are not conducive to building wealth. And what do I mean by that? The average person believes their home is an asset. And we talked about this a little bit yesterday. And the truth of the matter is, very rarely is your home that you live in an asset. It may be a what I call a dead asset, in that it's not really pulling any money out of your pocket, but it's not putting any in. It's an asset when it brings value. Now, the asset that a home that is owned brings is that it holds value. It holds value in a very safe place because you own the deed of it. It's a lot more secure than currency. And so you have to understand that. But the thing is, the average person doesn't own their home outright. They have a mortgage on their home. And most people are under a 30-year mortgage. More and more people are going into 15-year mortgages, but most people are under 30-year mortgage. So for 30 years of your adult life, you're paying for the home you'll eventually own. So it may, in other words, when you buy a home and it's a home that you plan on owning and you have a 30-year mortgage, you have to sort of look at that as this is a step in building wealth for the next generation. In other words, that's what it should be. You should be building wealth, not for yourself, but for the next generation. Your parents should have passed you along the wealth that you're going to live on. But we are so far behind, the most of us, that that's not the case. But anyway, the quickest way that you can determine what's an asset and what's a liability is by measuring the direction of the cash flow. It's really that simple. Everything is going to be dictated by how cash flows. It's an asset when the cash is flowing into your bank account, into your pocket, into whatever that you own. When the cash is flowing in, it's an asset. When the cash is flowing out, it's a liability. So when your home has a mortgage on it that you're paying every month, it can't be an asset because it's a liability. It's costing you money. Okay, and it doesn't matter how big or small the house is, it's still a liability until you stop paying money on it. On the flip side, you buy a rental property and you put a tenant in it, then it's an asset. Why? Because every month it's going to have cash flowing in instead of out. Now, you'll have to balance that because sometimes you're going to have maintenance and all that. But at the end of the day, if you have a break profit line in anything you've invested in, it's an asset. And so it's bringing more money in than it's costing you. It's an asset. And so that's the thing you have to look at. You have to understand asset and liability. But the biggest thing you have to understand is the mindset around money. Little things that we don't even think about that we say. I tell you all the time, watch your self-talk, because your self-talk is the program that supercomputer called your brain is running. When you're talking about your realities about money, your realities about your relationship, your realities about the business you want to start or that you're starting, you're literally programming your brain on how it's going to approach it. If you keep saying it's probably not going to work, it's a long shot, then your brain is looking at it in that way, and the energy and the effort and everything else that goes with it is going to be created by your brain, your thoughts, your beliefs. That's going to happen. Same thing with money. First and foremost, you have to understand that money is simply a medium. It's not the end. It is something you need to get the end. You don't really want a bunch of money because you just want a bunch of money. You want a bunch of money because you can get the car. You want a bunch of money because you can stop worrying about your bills. You want a bunch of money so you get the house, so you can take the trip, so you can take care of your kids' education or their dreams and starting their own business. You want to be able to finance the life that you want. That's why you want money. So when you start to see it as simply an instrument, you see it differently. But here's one that I hear a lot, that's from people who are struggling to build wealth or worse, and those who have already built wealth are on the way to building wealth and have the right mindset. It's real simple. But it's one of the most powerful things. You never hear a person who understands money say they're broke. They may not have a dime in the bank account, but they don't say they're broke. And there's a bunch of reasons why you don't do this. First and foremost, the money isn't the only thing that defines your net worth. So if you have other things that create worth, then you're definitely not broke. You having a cash flow problem. Now, I hear that all the time, having a cash flow problem, all that means is there's not enough cash flowing at one given time to take care of expenses. It doesn't mean that you are worthless. It simply means that you got to fix the cash flow problem. And saying I'm broke versus I have a cash flow problem, actually, and here's why. If you say you broke, it sounds definitive, it sounds definite, it sounds long term, and it's something that's so negative that it can weigh you. If you say I have a cash flow problem, problems are meant to be what? Solved. It's a puzzle. It requires a solution, but the solution is available, and the solution is always available. So how am I going to create more cash flow? How am I going to generate more cash flow to deal with the cash flow issues, while at the same time accumulating enough hard assets that hold value, real estate property, land, um, precious metals, certain jewelry, precious stones. Uh, if you understand the stock market, and that's my thing, if you understand the stock market and you want to put some money into that, it is not as hard as real estate, but it is definitely not as volatile as cash. Now, the market is going to move, but if you learn the market, that's the whole thing. There is no quick fix to the market. There's no quick, if you just do this, you win. Stop those, click this button, things that you're buying into. It takes a lot of research. It takes a lot of understanding, whether you're playing the Forex market, whether you're playing cryptocurrency and digital currency, whether you're playing, commodities and futures and you're dealing with mutual bonds, indexing, but whatever it is, you need to understand how it works. You need to understand the risk involved. The things that are the wealthy elite have four things that they really focus on. Number one is their risks that they're taking on at any given time. They also focus on asymmetric risk reward. While we've been taught you got to invest a lot to get a little, they go the other way around. They want investments where they can invest a little and get a lot, relatively speaking. Now, their little is probably a lot for us, but that's how they look. They're looking for a asymmetric of, I've heard Ray Dalio say 1 to 5, meaning that for every dollar I am investing, I stand to gain 5. That means that I could be wrong 4 times and still win. Do you get what I'm saying? If I can get 5 for every one and I've got 5 different investments, I can be wrong with 4 of those and still win and be up $1. That's how they think. The other part after asymmetric risk reward is liabilities. What most people don't even think, and this doesn't matter how wealthy you are or how poor you are, it's actually more prevalent when you have a job. Most people don't realize that your greatest expense in life isn't your home. It isn't your car, all that. At the end of the day, it's how much you're paying in taxes, whether it's federal taxes, state taxes, sales taxes, and all the other ways that you can be taxed, luxury taxes and so many other things. That taxes is where you manage that's where you have the most capacity to manage loss, the most capacity to manage your money to create gain. And you have to understand that the wealthy do. They understand it. That's why you see so many that pay little to no taxes. And the thing is, the loopholes that they're jumping through are there for everybody. And what gets me is when I hear somebody say that's not fair. Well, it is, because it's available to you. You don't know the system, so it's not fair to you because you're thinking like an employee. And so they're going to take that. They're going to take a certain portion of it right off the top. So is there a way to stop them from taking a portion off the top? Is there a way for you to increase your earnings without them increasing your tax? Actually, it is, but not the way you're doing it. That's why you should be up on tax code. That's why you should be reading tax codes and understanding it, sitting down with a CPA, sitting down with a tax expert and understanding what you have in front of you. How can you take your money? Is it good in a 401k? Is it better in an IRA of some sort? What about investing it in an annuity? What about all of these different games can be played by anybody, but you've got to understand that the opportunities are there. So what you know, again, these are conversations that you should know the content well enough to be discussing it with your child. You don't want your child to go up and have to go through the same thing you've went through, where the system is literally sucking the life out of any opportunity that they have to build. And that's what we're facing, is we're facing a lot of situations in which we're pushing ignorance generation after generation. Just get you a good job, save you so and so an amount of money, and you can't save your way to wealth. Number one, the volatility and the value of the dollar. In 1971, Richard Nixon took the dollar off the gold standard and we became a debt-based economy. Well, the reason for taking it off was they needed to print more money. Now, a lot of people don't want to admit that, but see, when you got it, when you have a standard that's backing your money, you can only print money to the equal amount of the value of what you have in the standard. In this case, the standard was gold. Well, we only have so much gold on hand, so we can only print so much money. What we needed was the ability to print more money, even though it would be devalued. We could spend it and we could do what we needed to do with it. We were basically becoming bankrupt as a country. And so what we did is we went to a debt-based economy. Now, here's the problem with debt-based economies. You've got to drive up the debt. So we convince people to be consumers. So instead of investing, I'm buying. And the only difference between investing and buying, when you buy something, it's what you've got now. It's more of an emotional win. It'll do something, it'll serve a service for you, but it doesn't have a back end value. When you invest, you are investing to increase what you're using to invest. So if I'm investing money, I'm investing to increase that money in some way. A return on my investment is what I'm expecting. And so you have to understand that. But the system is playing us. The system is playing us, and it's playing us in so many ways. I'm not going to be able to touch all this week, but it's playing us. What we have to do is honor the responsibility we have to learn how we're being played, how we can play the game and change, how we can stop being and behaving and acting like we're hopeless and helpless and, oh my God, that, and they're keeping me. No, your poor decisions in the way you're handling money is keeping you where you're at. Your ignorance towards what money means and how to use it to increase your value, your worth, is what's keeping you in. It's you sitting up thinking that having the shiny watch is more important than being able to sustain the lifestyle that you have without a job, if need be, or if you desire. There used to be a commercial back in the late 90s, early 80s, and it'll tell you, like, it'll show you this real nice watch or this real nice car or whatever, and it'll tell you what the price is. And like, it was one of those watches, I forget what watch it was, but it was like $5,000 watch. And it says, this watch will cost you, and it shows if you would have took the same amount of the same 5,000 and invested it like in index funds, which is passively managed mutual funds like the S&P 500, over the course of 20 years, what that watch would have cost you. And I mean like several $100,000. Yeah. When you talk about compounding, see, most people who don't understand wealth deal with compounding on the back end, the wrong end. We deal with compound interest on debt. So we got interest compounded on our cards, interest compounded on our car credit, our car loans, our mortgages. And so we're dealing, but it wins on the other way when you invest in things that return compound growth. That's one of the most rapid ways, not rapid, one of the most consistent ways to build wealth. You start out with whatever and it grows. Why does it grow? Because it's compounded. You take what you put in and it grows. And then the growth is also a part of the mechanism now. So now the 5% growth you got is a part of the original. Now that grows and now it's added. And then you're also adding along the way. It's compound growth. I told the story of Theodore Johnson, a guy who worked for UPS way back in the day. And Theodore Johnson, over the course of his career at UPS, topped out in salary at $14,000. Topped out at $14,000, but he had someone who he knew who was wealthy who told him to tax himself. He said, take 20% of that and invest it in index, in compound mechanisms and other things that are going to grow with compound. And he's like, man, I don't have 20% to give to that. He said, no, you don't. And the way he convinced him to take 20% off the top was he told him, if the government levied a 20% tax on you right now, you would kick, scream, throw a tantrum, but at the end of the day, you would pay it. Why not tax yourself, grow your wealth, and leave your family set? When he retired from UPS, Theodore Johnson was worth $72 million. He gave half of it away, And I think he died when he was in his 90s, but he gave half of it away. He lived off the rest, and he did what, he enjoyed life. But he never quit his job, old fashioned. He worked there, but he took that money and he grew it. And then he wasn't raiding it. He wasn't raiding it. He wasn't going in and grabbing and grabbing and grabbing. He set up and he let that grow. And what he did is he retired extremely wealthy. I seen a more recent issue of that where it wasn't as high, but it was a guy who had spent his whole life working at a parking lot. And maybe you guys saw this. They covered the story on it. Working at a parking lot. He was a parking lot attendant. He just stayed at the little bitty hut that where you drive through. That's where he was at. And but the thing is, he was a parking lot attendant in the financial district. So a lot of the people that were parking there were money managers and brokers and all of that. And he would just stop and have conversations with him, and they would give him little pieces of advice, and he would take a little piece of his check and he would invest it and invested it over a number of years. And the last I heard, when he retired from a $12 an hour job, he was worth over $1 million. And it's that simple. It's how you're going to approach dealing with your money. Are you investing it in your business, which should bring you a return? Are you investing it in an asset that's going to create passive income? Passive is beautiful. You got earned income, whether you are doing something for a job or you're doing something in your business or whatever, you have to earn it. That's earned income. You've got portfolio income or capital gains income, whichever way you want to call it, same thing. You invest in something and you move it you invest at one price and you sell it at a higher price. That's capital gains. Okay, then you got passive income. Passive income is, I'm going to invest in this house and then I'm just going to sit there and make sure the house is maintained, and I'm going to collect this check for rent every month. Passive income. And there are a bunch of different ways that you can create passive income. You have to just go out and research it. That's what I'm talking about. Be willing to sit up and go out and find out what's out there. Never be stagnant. Don't ever get frustrated, because I can tell you this from personal experience. I've had some unbelievable times where money wasn't an option. I've had times where things were tight. I had times where I was trying to grow the company, and so cash flow was a problem. And the one thing that I never allowed myself to do, and I never allow myself to do now, is get so flustered that I'm not able to think based off of a momentary problem. That's where we lose a lot too. We get caught up in a momentary problem and it becomes our life. It becomes how we define ourselves. That's why I say, don't say you're broke. Why? You're defining yourself. You're not broke. You have a cash flow problem, because it can be fixed, and it can be fixed rather quickly. So that's the thing we've got to do. We've got to wake up with a responsibility to teach. First and foremost, those in our home, our children, our spouses, we need to teach. Then we need to teach those in the community around us that can benefit and that we can connect with, network with, and interlock with to build bigger. We should not have to be depending on outside sources if we understand the power of the dollars we control. But when you are predominantly consumers, you tend to enrich others while keeping yourself in a state of poverty. You have to say, I want my money to work for me. I want my money to create and build something for me that will take care of me. That's what financial freedom is. Financial freedom is saying, this is the lifestyle I want to live, whether it's in a little quiet 3-bedroom home or a mansion on the hill. This is the life I want to live. And these are the mechanisms I've created so that I never have to work for it. That's financial freedom. Financial freedom and financial independence, financial freedom is saying that, well, financial independence is that, meaning that all of the things that I require to live the life I want to live are taken care of in the mechanisms that I've created. So if I never work another day, I'm good. That's financial independence. Financial freedom says I got financial independence. Plus I can go do a bunch of stuff I really don't have to do, but I want to do. And I can take the trip. I can go fly here. I can go there. I can buy this. I can do that. And so you've got financial independence, financial freedom, and then you can take it as high as you want to in that financial freedom range. to live life, but you have to create the mechanisms. It's that simple. And anybody can create the mechanisms. Now, obviously, the older you're getting, the more you got to be willing to put in the game in order to play the game. Why? Because you don't have as much time. The kid that starts out in their 20s investing in indexing is going to, at the same rate, say they're putting the same thing in every year, is going to literally 5 times, 8 times, 10 times more than the person who starts at 40, putting in the same thing. Because the compound growth mechanism in that 20 years that this person wasn't putting it in is going to be so huge that by the time they're 65, it's going to be not just double. You would think, okay, I started 20 years before him. He put 20 years in, I put 40 years in, I'll have double. No, that's not how compound interest works. And so the earlier you start, the better compounding works for you. So if you are starting later in life, you're going to have to be more aggressive. You're going to have to learn more. You're going to have to be willing to commit to more, but you're going to have to bring value to a marketplace. You're also going to have to understand value in the marketplace and play the money game right. And I'll give you a prime example. Did you know that the vast majority of the wealth that Warren Buffett owns, I've heard as high as 90-something% of the wealth that Warren Buffett owns, he gained, he built, he accumulated after he turned 50. I know that a lot of his beginning of his life was just trying to get in the game, trying to learn the game, trying to prove. He's always had the mind, but it took some time to get in the game. And he started in Nebraska, if I'm not mistaken, and ended up somewhere on the East Coast. And then some other things happened. But it took 50 before he really hit his stride. And everything he's done since then is what we know him for. So it's never too late. I tell people all the time, it's never too late, but what you can't do is say, well, I wasted it. So no, you can't take the stuck mentality. You have to sit up and say, I'm going to do something bigger and better. And you go out and you make it happen. I'm going to get off of here. So I have a client at 8:30. So I got to get off and get ready for that. But I just wanted to stop by and share that with you. We're going to talk again about money tomorrow. But we've got to start looking at money different. We've got to start looking at how we're handling it, how we see it, what we're doing with it, and how we're teaching our babies to handle money, to think about money, to move with money. It's so important. We are really failing in that area. It's time to start educating. And you have to first educate yourself. You've got to learn about money. With that being said, I'm going to jump off of here. You guys have a great day. I will holler at you later.